Hey guys, it's me, Octopella Chance here. I'm bringing you a new DVD slash Blu-ray review of my collection. I realize it's been almost a year. It's been 10 months since my last video I posted on my collection. I wanted to collect as much for this era as I could. I had never really in depth looked through the 60s. There were a lot of television shows I hadn't seen. There were a lot of films I had missed out on, so I wanted to kind of go back and do it thoroughly. There were a lot that I had been wanting to collect. I may have to divide this video in half, do like 1960 to 1965, and then 66 to 69. Because again, I really thoroughly went into this, and I just wanted to get as much of that time period as I could that is well known or that I was curious about. So I'm going to start with this first one. I have the original and the remake because I was curious about the original because it is a William Castle film. He directed House on Haunted Hill. He did the original 13 Ghosts from 1960. This has Margaret Hamilton, who played the Wicked Witch in the original Wizard of Oz. Again, I was curious about it because William Castle directed it. It has 3D glasses in here. As you can see, it's kind of gimmicky. That was how it was when it came out as well. William Castle used gimmicks to get people to see his films, and for this one the gimmick was to see it in 3D. That was how you saw the ghosts. It actually has a 2D version on this disc to where you don't have to put the glasses on, which thank the Lord, because not everybody wants to wear red and blue glasses. The remake I actually prefer over the original. I saw it before the original, and it's the 2001 remake. Now this one I thought was a little bit more well crafted. The way you actually saw the ghosts, all the ghosts had backstories. If you go to the special features, you can actually look up all of the origins to all of the ghosts. Pretty cool. That was when Dark Castle was making these films for Warner Brothers. Dark Castle was kind of like a reintroduction into horror in the early 2000s for Warner Brothers. Now this one is kind of a cult classic. It's made by an Italian director, Mario Bava. He has a lot of cult classics. The one that I'm holding right now is Black Sunday. This is probably his most well known. It's one of his better films. It is in black and white. It's a tale of witchcraft and how there was this curse put on this family, and you kind of have to see it. It's a lot of 60s films are very artistic, and this one especially. There obviously, if you don't like films where there's like English dub, you might not enjoy it because you can tell some of the actors couldn't speak English very well. I'm struggling right now. Now this film, The City of the Dead, it had Christopher Lee in it, which is what turned me on to it. I think it was a zombie film. I don't remember it very well. I don't think it was like super great. I remember it having some issues, and it has a different name too. It goes by an alternative name. I just can't think of it at the moment. Now, Roger Corman was a director in the 60s, and he made quite a few films. He actually did another film which I didn't show in my last video for the 50s, which was A Bucket of Blood. Anyways, he did a film called The Last Woman on Earth. This is, I think it's kind of supposed to be a spin-off of The Last Man on Earth, but it's about a couple, and then they pick up this friend of theirs who's like gambling with them, and then all these problems arise when they try to like be around each other. He also made the original Little Shop of Horrors. This has Jack Nicholson in it. Hello. This one, I think, is the color version. Yeah, I wanted to get this because I've only seen it a few times. The one from the 80s that's the musical is probably the better one to go for. It's just a little bit more enjoyable of a film. If you can't do musicals, I wouldn't suggest it though, because it is a musical. Steve Martin's in it though, and Rick Moranis. This one, I really only got into it because I had seen parts of the remake, but it's the Magnificent Seven. This one, I believe, has Steve McQueen in it. Yep, Charles Bronson. I thought this was pretty well done. I can't remember it very well. I remember the remake with Denzel and Chris Pratt and Ethan Hawke being pretty good. I remember this one almost surpassing the original. And it has to be pretty good for it to surpass the original, at least in my opinion. I have the Oceans films. The original Oceans 11 came out in the 60s. This had like the Rat Pack in it, which was like a musical group. I thought this was pretty entertaining as well. Now, the remakes are obviously more well known because they've got actors like Brad Pitt, George Clooney, Julia Roberts. I've seen the first 11, or I've seen the first Ocean, sorry, I haven't seen 12 or 13, I need to go watch those. I did see Ocean's 8 in theaters with Sandra Bullock. This is the one with the women heisting the money. This one I really enjoyed. I always kind of lean more towards female-driven movies. This is a British film from the 60s. And again, it's kind of a cult classic. I don't know how much it's talked about now, but it's Peeping Tom, and it's a movie about this mentally disturbed man who is kind of discovering women through videotaping them, and then he murders them. And you see it kind of from the visuals of the camera, like from the point of view of the camera. And a lot of movies have ripped this idea off in the future, and I feel like this was kind of an originator for that type of film where you're seeing the killer's point of view. Another famous movie about a killer from the 60s is Psycho. This is beyond a classic. If you are a horror fan or just a fan of classic horror, I would really suggest watching this. This is the 1960 version. And it's just a great film. The music's great, the acting's great, the storyline is great, there's a lot of twists throughout. I have the sequels, of course. I really liked that Anthony Perkins came back for all 3 sequels. You don't see that a lot in horror movie franchises. You don't see a lot of the main characters coming back repeatedly, or actors coming back to play those characters. So that I thought was pretty good. The second one's my favorite with Meg Tilly. I think that one's got a lot of twists in it. This is considered a really bad remake. It's the Gus Van Sant 98 remake to Psycho. I've gone back and forth with this film. As a child, I loved it. I actually saw it before the Hitchcock version, which, you know, is like a deep sin, but that version is better. It surpasses this one. But I don't hate this. It's like I love the little extra things they threw in that are in the 60s version. If you watch this version, there are a few extra shots they threw in there because of the time period. And of course I have the first season of Bates Motel. I like Vera Farmiga, and I love the guy who plays Norman from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. It's a slow burning show, and it takes a lot more turns than the movies do. So be prepared for that if you haven't watched it. But it's interesting thus far. I don't know if I'll watch any more seasons of it. Now this one, it's a Kirk Douglas film, and obviously the Douglases are very well-known actors, but it's Spartacus. I believe there's a remake to this. I don't remember what year it's from, but I only got this one, and I really thought this was well done for the time period, and the Blu-ray transfer was actually really good for this one. So this one I actually didn't really know a lot about until I started indulging in 60s films. It's The Time Machine. It's based on H.G. Wells' book. This one is basically a man who invents a time machine, and then his wife is murdered, so he kind of goes back to like beat the death from happening, and then it's kind of like the butterfly effect. It causes all of these things to change in the future, and then he goes into the future to like change the outcome of life, and it's a really good journey. This one, the older one, is a little bit creepier than the 2002 version. This is the one with Guy Pearce. This one's a little bit more uplifting and adventurous. It's not as Twilight Zone-y. The original, again, kind of has creepier setups in it, and the creatures. I don't want to get into it too much, but you should watch it if you're into like adventurous, futuristic type films. All right, so this is the '60s Village of the Damned. This is a British film too. This one's kind of hard to explain, but basically this entire town is plagued. All of these women end up becoming pregnant in this big blackout where everybody passes out, and when they wake up all the women in the town are pregnant, and all of their kids end up having white hair, and all of them end up like having weird telekinetic powers. The remake that John Carpenter did in the 90s with Christopher Reeve is actually a lot better in my opinion. I mean, it's not the originator, but it's got great actors from the 90s, like Kirstie Alley's in this, and trying to think of some others. But I really enjoyed this one a little bit more than the British one. This movie, I probably won't watch it again because it's a very concerning film for the content, and it's called The Virgin Spring. I believe this is a Danish film. Maybe? I apologize if it's not. However, there's a rape scene in it, and I really feel like everything kind of stems from a movie like this. This is going back and watching everything from like the beginning of time. This is the first thing I've seen really with like a rape in it, so I feel like everything kind of originates from this. Would not recommend it if you cannot handle stuff like that, because that kind of ruins the experience a little bit. This one, now going from rape to Disney, I have 101 Dalmatians, which I've always loved the animated. I love the 96 version with Glenn Close, the live action, and the sequel 102 Dalmatians. I've always loved those two. I think her acting is over the top and just on point. But the animated is good too. It's got music in it, you know, the Cruella de Vil. You know, this one is really entertaining too. And I feel that way with a lot of the animated original Disney films. This is another Disney film. Oh, sorry, I almost skipped one. This is Disney also, but it's called The Absent-Minded Professor. Now, basically, it's the original Flubber. If you've seen Flubber with Robin Williams, this is the 60s one. I don't remember this very well either. Probably liked the Robin Williams one better. Now, this one I got, and I didn't even realize I had seen it before. I have the animated version from the 90s, but this is the 60s Babes in Toyland. There's an 80s TV Babes in Toyland with Keanu Reeves, of all actors, and Drew Barrymore. And that one I would like to see again. However, except Drew Barrymore sings in it, but she's not actually singing. It's like a girl like dubbing her, which that is... Ugh. Anyways, this I had actually seen when I was a kid. And this one's got the Scarecrow, I think, from the original Wizard of Oz. It's a musical again. I enjoy it because it's a musical and because that time period, especially the 60s, the musicals were pretty on point, as they say. I have an Elvis film. I have a few Elvis films. I showed Jailhouse Rock in my 50s collection. This is Blue Hawaii. This one I really enjoy for the Hawaiian music, the Hawaii vibes. Wanna Hakalugi, Come On You Wanna Lay Me. I just love it because I've always been a fan of Elvis, and I love the duality of him being an actor and playing his music in film. Check it out if you're an Elvis fan. Now, of course, I had to get this one because it's one of the original chick flicks, I believe, but it's Breakfast at Tiffany's with Audrey Hepburn. I didn't love this either. I think there's some films when you don't grow up watching them, they kind of hit a mark when you see them when you get older. You're like, dude, that didn't sit right with me, and that was kind of this one. I didn't watch it growing up, so it didn't sit well with me. It wasn't a bad film, it just not my favorite Hepburn experience. This is a musical to The Music Man. There's a few songs I like from this, but I tried watching this and could not get through it. Sorry to any Music Man fans. Couldn't do it, and I will not watch that Matthew Broderick remake to save my life. So now with this one again, I watched the remake a lot more than the original, but I have seen the original a lot, so I do like the original too, and it's the Parent Trap films. You know, Haley Mills, she's done quite a few Disney films from the 60s, so I have mad respect for her. Lindsay Lohan, this was the very first film of hers I ever saw, and she had me believing that she really had a British accent playing that one twin, so I love them both. I think this one holds a little bit more magic for me just because it was a childhood film, and this one I kind of saw later, but they're both good. I got this William Castle collection again. I'm a big William Castle fan. I love his gimmicks he had in his films. All of these are pretty good. One of them I actually already do have, the 13 Ghosts, but Homicidal I would say was probably the best out of all of these. Homicidal had, again, kind of psycho type twists. So now I have The Brain That Wouldn't Die. Now this one is kind of a cult classic too. There's a lot of violence in it for the time period, and a lot of just gnarly scenes that come out of left field, and that's what I like about it. But basically this guy brings his wife's head back to life, and she becomes kind of this experimental slave he keeps alive, and then she just decides to start coming up with a revenge plot. You gotta watch it, it's crazy. Oh, I'm dropping my movies. This is how you know I have too many of them. Alright, so then this one again, I had seen the remake a lot more. There's a remake in the 90s with Robert De Niro that Martin Scorsese directed, and it is one of the best action thrillers I've seen. But the original, which was also a Universal film, had Gregory Peck, Robert Mitchum, which were big names at the time. I'm a big Robert Mitchum fan from Night of the Hunter, big Gregory Peck fan from The Omen. I just think that this is a well done film as well. It's black and white. I would say this one and the 91 version are both very well done. The 90s one surpasses for me because the 90s one's a little bit more over the top. It doesn't matter what I do, I can't keep these from falling over. Now, this one I like because it's very unusual and it's very mysterious, and you don't get a lot of questions answered in it, but it's a very well done film, and it's Carnival of Souls. Now, this was actually shot in my home state, Kansas, in Lawrence, and some of it was shot in Lawrence, Kansas, some of it was shot in Utah. But it's just it's a bizarre film, and it's like a Twilight Zone that you never really get all the answers to till the end. The remake from the 90s is not good. It's very disturbing and not in ways you want it to be. The scenes that you want to be effective aren't. The scenes that are effective are too effective to the point where it turns you off. It doesn't give you good feelings, and it's not good compared to the original. But I mostly got it because Larry Miller's in it from The Nutty Professor, and apparently I like him as an actor. Now, this is a James Bond collection I got. I mostly got this because I had never really watched some of the like Roger Moore ones, and some of the ones like more in the 90s. However, watching these, I only really indulged in the Sean Connery ones. I really feel like he could have gotten away with playing Bond all these years. He's still in pretty good shape, at least he was up until maybe about 10 years ago. But I will probably see No Time to Die. The Daniel Craig ones are good. They go very hard, and sometimes I kind of lose track of the fact that they're James Bond films. Not saying they're bad. And I have a couple of spoofs to the James Bond films. Casino Royale, the 60s one, not the Daniel Craig one. This is a parody. And then Never Say Never Again, which actually has Sean Connery in it. Surprising. But they're interesting. This one's a Gregory Peck one. I don't love it, To Kill a Mockingbird. This is kind of one of those classic American literature, the books classic and the film. I'm not the biggest fan of this. Again, it's kind of hit and miss for me. Now, we're getting into some good territory here. This is a Polanski film, Roman Polanski. This would be the first one I believe I'm showing of his, which is Knife in the Water. This one is a lot like That Last Woman on Earth. It's kind of like a couple that gets involved with a man and then he ends up turning on them. It's very well shot. I can't remember a lot of it. Polanski's very good at kind of twisting your mind in his films. This is a Stanley Kubrick film, and it's not my favorite. Lolita, I'm sorry, but nothing about this amuses me. It's very inappropriate. The guy ends up falling in love with, like, I can't remember how old she was, but she's underage. It just doesn't give you very positive vibes, and I think Kubrick has some very powerful films in positive directions compared to this. I would stay away from this, honestly. Like, there's people who love this film probably, but I did not. Did nothing for me. Now, this one's a political thriller, which is The Manchurian Candidate. This one I mostly got for Janet Leigh. Love her from Psycho, but and Angela Lansbury's in this too. This one I remembered liking. This one I liked a little more. The one with Denzel Washington. I thought it was a little bit more mind twisty and really played on psychological fears of brainwashing a little bit more. It deals with, you know, the government brainwashing the military. It's very conspiracy theory type stuff, but I liked it. I thought it was entertaining. I think what I'm going to do now is stop the video and then I'll start a part 2 because there is quite a bit here and I don't know how long this is going to take. So just bear with me.